Alrighty, good morning, everyone. Good morning. Hope you guys are doing well. Today is Friday, December the 12th. What's up, everyone? Good morning. Hope you guys are doing well. Overall markets yesterday, as I mentioned, really, we're going to have a decent amount of volatility. I kind of talked about we're most likely not going to have a clear direction, but there is going to be volatility just because we had FOMC on Wednesday. And now you can see really kind of strong push down right off the bat here on the Qs down in towards that pre-market lows, and then really nice rally actually right back up in towards our FOMC highs along with that Wednesday's highs in the after hours. And of course we had some AVGO earnings which really pumped the markets. SPY back at all-time highs, Qs back at your previous day highs, and then that ultimately faded, and now we're actually right back down in towards our Monday's lows. So really, as you can see right here, if you're just looking at the past 2 days worth of price action, really big moves to either side, but no real clear direction here. And that's kind of been the theme as of late, especially the past 2 weeks to kind of start off the month of December, is there's been either no clear direction or we've had a lack of volatility, but now we have some volatility in the markets, but we still don't have a clear direction. So we'll head on to the charts here in a second. Before we do that, yeah, I hope everyone's doing well. What's up, everyone? Hopefully the mic is good here today. Before we get started, can you guys type one in the chat if the mic's good today? What's up, everyone? Good morning, B Roots, Lamit, Victor, Andreas, Cody, Hector, Patrick. Good morning, Dragon, Martin 50, Cinna. Good morning, Robert, Detecto, Vate, Purple, Ace. Good morning, Miss Reggie, Deuce, Ken, Cosmic, I am. Yeah, what's up, everyone? Hope you guys are doing well. 111. Perfect. Okay, awesome. Let's get on to the major indices and then we'll get started here. First things first, as you can see here for the overall markets, really for the ES, we've ended up having a super nice bounce towards the upside, but you can see the divergence. If we're just strictly looking at this comparing these two charts, right? If we're looking at the NQ, we're actually just consolidating and we're closer to the middle of the range. We're actually below equilibrium. So we're closer to the bottom of the range compared to ES, which is closer to your top of the range. And of course, DOW is the leading indice, which this one is already back at your all-time highs. So you can see the divergence between a couple of these major indices here. DOW is leading back towards the upside, followed by the ES, and then followed by the NQ. So this is normally what we don't really want to see specifically for the NQ wise. If we want to have any sort of nice higher time frame setups or any continuation, when the NQ is lagging behind the overall markets, generally speaking, that just means there's going to be less opportunity, at least on the tech side. So let's go on to the ES. So coming into today, or let's kind of just give a quick overview of what happened yesterday. Price, you can see a lot of volatility on Wednesday with FOMC. Yesterday, we actually came right back down in towards our pre-market lows. A lot of buyers stepped in really right off that Thursday's lows and pushed price right back up and towards our high that we created here with FOMC, which was from which was Wednesday's highs. And now you can see in the after hours and in the pre-market, we tried having this nice kind of push higher here with AVGO earnings, and ultimately now, right, we're kind of right around this general area, and we're actually still underneath this FOMC high. So coming into today here, so for the ES, the key time frame and the key level that we're going to mark out is going to be the 6,900. I have not changed this level. So all the levels that we have marked out this week, I have not refined them. I haven't changed them whatsoever. They're just the exact same thing. Last week's highs, we have your Friday's lows, which is equilibrium. And then we also have your Thursday's lows marked out as well. So coming into today, if you do want to see upside, break above your last week's highs, hold for this push back up and towards our this is our after hours highs from yesterday for this continuation towards the upside. So this is going to be the key level. If we reject, then we can see a push right back down in towards our equilibrium or our Friday's lows. So this is going to be a very key level coming to today. Keep an eye out on your 6,900 for the ES. If you look at the SPY chart, fairly similar thesis here. So for the SPY, the key levels that I have marked out, if I just zoom out, we actually did recently hit your all-time highs once again here in the after hours. So this is our all-time highs on the SPY. If I just zoom out, you can see this is our main objective. We've been looking for SPY all-time highs really all of this week. And you can see just a little bit of consolidation. I want to see kind of a blow off the top move for a break higher above your all-time highs. But currently you can see we have a couple rejections off this general area, but we're going to need the strong break above and hold if you want to see any sort of continuation towards the upside. So as you can see, this is your all-time highs. Let's go back onto the lower time frames. Turn back on these drawings here as well. So for the SPY, you can see nice kind of buyers stepped in off your pre-market lows along with their Thursday's lows for this kind of continued push back towards the upside. We end up hitting your all-time highs in the after hours again. So you can see touch here, another touch in the after hours, and then a couple other touches here in the pre-market as well. What we like to see now for the SPY, we have two scenarios. Number one scenario, break above your all-time high 690, hold for this continued pushback towards the upside. Another possible scenario here now, dip down in towards our 688, which is really now just going to be this FOMC key pivot level. Last week's highs here as well. And you can see multiple touches here in the pre-market and its previous day. This is also another possible bounce scenario for this continued pushback higher. So we have your 688. And we also have this 690 key pivot point coming into today. So really two scenarios here on the SPY chart. As I mentioned, SPY is one of the leading indices. This one's closer to all-time highs compared to the NQ. So if you do want to long anything, preferably majority of the names within the SPY or the SPY itself, or any names that are within the DOW. So this is what we have for SPY coming into today. The only way you're going to be a little bit more short bias is if it breaks back underneath our last week's high, 688. Then you could be looking for a pushback down in towards our 685. But this is going to be the key level for the SPY coming into market open. All right, so this is what we have. Now let's go on to the NQ. So as you can see here for the NQ, consolidation within the past really for 2 weeks here, past 14 days, a lot of consolidation on the NQ. No real clear direction in the market. It's just kind of bounces from the bottom of the range, rejections off the top of the range. So real no clear direction here. If you look at this on the daily time frame as well, right, we are bullish. But now after this big bounce, we're just consolidating this general area. Whereas the ES hit all-time highs, we have the DOW that hit all-time highs. NQ is just lagging behind, right? This can be due to plenty of factors like the semiconductors staying heavy, right? NVIDIA and AMD have been lagging behind the overall markets, kind of holding down the overall Nasdaq. We have a couple other names showing relative weakness as well. So a lot of names are lagging behind here. So that's why the NQ has been lagging behind the ES and the rest of the indices. So for the NQ moving forward, with ES and the rest of the names hitting all-time highs, we do have to be cautious on tech specifically because now you can see a couple upper rejections, touch here last week, another touch FOMC, another touch yesterday in the after hours, and now we're right back down inside the middle of the range. So very cautious here on NQ. Longs are above your last week's highs and a hold above that level, but of course today, very unrealistic that price is going to push all the way back above your previous day highs and hold above that level for continuation higher. So when we are trading inside of a range, we primarily want to be looking for right bounces off the low of the range, or we're going to be looking for the rejections off the top of the range, right? When we're trading inside of a range, and we want to be looking for continuation, it's just a little bit more difficult. We're going to have to wait for that break above and hold if we want to see any sort of continuation. So really coming into today, the key levels that I have marked out on the NQ is going to be our last week's highs. Now it's just going to be our previous day highs along with our Wednesday's highs here. Other levels that we have marked out, Thursday's highs of last week, we have your Monday's lows, and of course we have your previous day lows here as well, which is your 25,400. So coming into today here for the NQ, If you do want to see some upside, there's actually a couple scenarios that you could be looking for. Number one, kind of this reclaim potential push back up and towards our previous day close, our 25,800. Another possible scenario here as well, right? Kind of strong buyer stepping in right off the bat, push back up and towards our previous day close once again. Or if price had a lot of weakness, you'd be looking for the bounce off of your previous day lows, 25,400 for this continued push all the way back towards the downside. So this is what we have for the NQ coming into today. Now let's go on to the QQQ. So as for the QQQ, very similar thesis here, right? Multiple touches off of our last week's highs, rejection on Wednesday, another rejection yesterday here as well. And now we're right back down towards the middle of the range. So coming into today, really similar game plan here. If we do want to see any sort of upside in the markets, we're going to have to look for the hold above your 621 for a potential reversal, right? Nice strong push right off the bat, reclaim back above that Thursday's highs for a push higher, or we'd be looking for the dip all the way back down in towards that previous day lows, which is that 618. So for the QQQ, this is what we have here. Another possible scenario, if you want to see a little bit more downside, since this is weaker, right? Potentially you could be looking for the break underneath that Monday's low, 621. I'm not as interested in shorts. If I am looking to short, it's going to primarily be the Qs over any other indice. But right now, we're just currently in a range. So we're currently in a range here in the overall markets. I'd just be cautious until we break outside this range. I don't expect any crazy continuation moves. When we're inside of this range, just keep an eye out on key levels, bounces, rejections. You're just looking for mini day trades and just trying to capture intraday relative strength or weakness. Okay, so that's the major indices and what we have coming into today on the SPY and the Qs. If you guys do have any charts or any tickers, you guys can now drop them in the chat. I'm going to go over some of the Mag 7 names here, and then after that, I'll go over some other tickers as well. I know right now there's currently some other names that are moving, that are honestly moving better than things that are in the Mag 7 and really the Qs in itself. There's been some higher time frame breakouts in some other sectors, but we'll take a look at that here in a bit. Alrighty. Yeah, if you guys do have any charts or any tickers, you guys can now drop them in the chat. If you guys are enjoying this so far, I appreciate if you guys drop a like. If you guys haven't joined the free daily watch list, that of course is in the description below. Other things to mention is for this week's video is going to be good as well. I'm talking about the first daily pattern, basically a daily pattern that I use. It's very similar to how I mark out the key levels, but I just break it down kind of step by step into a nice YouTube video that's going to come out on Sunday at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Okay, let's go on to Tesla first. Yeah, silver is going crazy. If you guys have been paying attention to some of the other sectors and commodities, silver's been going absolutely crazy. I think it's having a blow off the top move currently, so we'll take a look at that here in a second. Gold's still holding up as well, so we'll take a look at that after some of these tech names. Okay, so for Tesla here, let's go on to the hourly time frame. After this big push up last week, really now we've just been kind of consolidating. We really haven't done too much this week. You can see this is your Monday's open, and now you can see drop, push higher, pop, kind of faded, and now we're right back at the same spot. So coming into Friday, we're about opening up in the same spot we have on Monday. So not really too much to talk about, not really a clear direction here on Tesla coming to market open. Really, the levels you're just going to keep an eye out on is this exact level here, 448. Right, you can see if we break above it, continuation higher, get underneath it, you can see a push back towards the downside. You can see plenty of opportunities around these general areas coming into this week. So that's what we have for Tesla. Not too much else to say since there's no real clear direction here. Let's go on to NVIDIA. All right, so for Nvidia coming into today here, let's go on to the hourly time frame. Similar thesis, right? Nvidia, along with the rest of the semis, these ones have been lagging behind the overall markets. If you're just looking at this week's price action, really not much to talk about. We end up having a nice push up on Monday, ultimately kind of faded back towards the downside, gap down yesterday, but now we're already right back up in towards our Wednesday's lows. So for Nvidia, really coming into today, key levels that we're going to have marked out, Wednesday's lows, we have a key pivot level from yesterday. If you do want to see some upside here on Nvidia, reclaim back above our 182.50 for any sort of pushback towards the upside or a potential kind of bounce play off that 180. Semis have been harder to trade. We did trade Nvidia towards the downside yesterday off of our key level, but really now kind of with it back inside of the range, we just want to be a little bit more cautious. So for the semis, right, another pop here. I think we did have some more news. It's just like the same news kind of over and over again with the China news, and it's just kind of popping, dropping. So a lot of the volatility or a lot of these big moves have been happening in the after hours. We also had some AVGO earnings we'll talk about here in a second and how that affected the market. But this is what we have for Nvidia. As for AMD, this one super solid drop towards the downside yesterday. So a couple of the semis, if you guys were able to catch this yesterday towards the downside, we talked about keeping an eye out on the semiconductors since these ones are showing relative weakness. So AMD, nice drop yesterday. NVIDIA, nice drop right off the bat yesterday as well. Ultimately, these ones did get bought up with the overall QQQ bouncing off of a key level support. But these ones end up having a nice move right off the bat towards the downside. Now the key levels that we're going to have marked out here is your 218, touch here, and I can see a couple touches from yesterday. And now we're kind of just consolidating around this general area here in the pre-market. So what we like to see coming into today, really hold of this 218, 219, potential pushback towards the upside. If we break underneath, we can see a move lower. As I talked about earlier, I don't really like anything in particular, specifically for the semis, just because we've been ranging, right? You can look at just the QQQ in itself. That's why it's been a little bit more difficult to trade, specifically any names within the tech side. You have to be very selective. You have to really choose the right stock with relative strength and weakness, especially when we're trading inside of this range. So that's why, right, NVIDIA, AMD, the rest of the tech names have been harder to trade just because we've been consolidating on the SPY and Qs. So that's what we have for the major indices. Really not too much to talk about. Kind of opening up right in the exact same level we did to start off this week. Let's go into Apple. Apple here on the higher time frames as well. Not too much to talk about. You can see kind of just consolidating inside of this general area. Dropped yesterday, but instantly bought right back up. Now we're kind of rejecting off this 279 here once again. If you do want to see upside, break above 279.50, hold. If you want to see some downside, right, break underneath, hold for this pushback towards the lows here. So that's what we have for Apple coming into market open. As for Google, right, just look at every single name in the market. Apple, consolidation, right? Google, consolidation here as well the past really 2 weeks. So for Google, similar thesis. Not too much to talk about here. Key levels, we can actually just readjust this key level down towards this low here. So for Google, key level that we just have marked out, 312, multiple touches earlier this week, another touch yesterday here as well. If you do want to see some upside now, bounce either off your 312 or the potential kind of break above your 318, hold for continuation. Meta, this one kind of dropping earlier into the week. This one somewhat staying heavy. Buyers kind of stepped in off of your low that we created here on Wednesday last week, and now we're just kind of consolidating in between its previous day highs and previous day lows. Not too much to talk about. Opening up inside the range here as well. Just be a little bit more cautious on these tickers coming into today. We'll see what shapes up here today, right? With FOMC that we had a couple days ago, just really taking on both sides, still inside of a range here on the Qs. As I mentioned, SPY is bullish. That is one of the leading indices, and we've been fairly bullish for a push up and towards our all-time highs on that name. We hit it a couple times in the after hours, but not in the actual market hours. So we'll see if SPY can gravitate up and towards that level today. As for Amazon, yeah, really not too much. Kind of key level, you can just mark out previous day highs. Microsoft lagging behind here as well. But yeah, I mean, let's go on to a few other tickers. It seems like the Mag 7, not too much to talk about. Netflix kind of showing a little bit more weakness underneath this 95. So potentially kind of this rejection, pop and fade for this continued pushback down and towards 92.50. So at least that's for the Mag 7. As I mentioned, we don't really have too much that we're looking for here. We're just going to keep an eye on primarily the SPY and Qs off the key levels. Tesla, potentially. This one's been providing a couple opportunities each day just based off the relative strength and the pre-market levels that we do have. And then the semis, these ones have been lagging behind, but we can keep an eye on these ones coming into today here as well. As for everything else, just really following along with the SPY and Qs. Now let's go into some other tech names. So we'll go into some other names here that have bigger moves in the market. We'll talk about AVGO first, of course, because that does have earnings or had earnings yesterday. Oracle the day before drop here as well. So we'll take a look at these and then we'll go on to some other names here as well. All right, let me grab some water here and then we will go on to some other names. Alrighty. So yeah, if you guys do have any charts or any tickers now, I know there's some, you guys already typed some up before, but we'll go over some of these names here. And then, yeah, we have actually a decent amount of names we can go over here. If you guys are enjoying this so far, of course, if you guys do enjoy this, you guys can drop a like, appreciate it. If you guys haven't joined the daily watch list, the free daily watch list, that of course is in the description below as well. Okay, let's start off on AVGO. So AVGO had earnings yesterday, and you can see this affected the market fairly heavily, right? We end up having this push higher in the SPY and Qs in the after hours, ultimately rejected off a key level. And now you can see we're right back down in between its previous day's range here, primarily because of AVGO earnings. So AVGO was fairly big. We end up having this super nice pop towards the upside, but then ultimately, right, you kind of faded back lower after rejecting your all-time highs here in the after hours. So the levels that I'm going to have marked out, let me actually just readjust these levels fairly quickly. So we're going to have this level marked out, which is now just going to be our all-time highs in the actual market hours. You can see we broke above it, but ultimately faded back underneath. So the real levels now for AVGO, if we zoom out, let's go on to kind of this daily time frame. So at least for AVGO here on the higher time frames, right, we're still fairly bullish. It's kind of one of these names where it's like Palantir or any name that have bullish earnings where you end up having that original pop or that drop. A lot of times these will eventually get bought back up. So for AVGO, right, we had earnings not too long ago in September, nice pop towards the upside. We actually defended this gap level and we just continued higher. Now we have our earnings drop right back down in towards key levels of support. So what we like to see moving forward here for AVGO, really my key level is going to be this previous all-time highs pivot point. Really now it's going to be this 372. So if you go into the lower time frames here, you can see showing a little bit of weakness. We're underneath our previous day lows here as well now. What I'd like to see is kind of this pop and fade down in towards our 372. And I'd like to see a potential kind of base starting at 372 to see if we can have a mini reversal back towards the upside. But at least today, right off the bat, right, keep an eye out on the pop and fade here on AVGO for this continuation lower. Fairly similar to something like Oracle. We'll kind of talk about this here in a second. But key level that I do have is now going to be this 386. Let's draw at this level at 386, Friday's lows from last week. That's going to be key coming into today. As for Oracle, this one had earnings yesterday as well. Kind of rejection off a key pivot point, drop towards the downside. So a couple of these earnings, at least this week, have been really dragging the overall markets lower. Weak guidance here as well. So that's been kind of affecting the rest of the theme rest of the semiconductors, rest of everything else. And that's why NVIDIA and AMD have primarily been staying heavy. So key levels now for Oracle, at least coming into today, really this key level of support, this double bottom. So let me drag this over. So we have this double bottom here that we ended up using really as support. You can drag this all the way back up and towards this wick here if you'd like. And now you also have your 197. So really came back down in towards our key level of support. Now we're trying to create this double bottom here at this 185, at least coming into today. Key levels that we do have is going to be this 189. So 189 is going to be key if you want to see any sort of upside, break above, continuation towards the upside, or now it's going to be above your previous day highs. If we want to stay heavy, we really like to see it stay underneath your previous day highs. So any pops, I would be more short bias on on Oracle. We are bouncing off of a key level support, but I'm about 50-50, right? Just dependent on intraday price action here, right? Higher time frame, of course, is bearish, but you like to see this kind of double bottom hold for a potential reversal back towards the upside. Short side plays are valid underneath your 197 for this continued pushback towards the downside. All right, this is what we have for AVGO and Oracle. And now let's go on to Palantir. Let's see. Probably answer some questions as well. Got to wait for IV crush before trading. Yeah, exactly. So if you're trading any sort of earnings name, the IV is going to be elevated. So you need what's something called an IV crush or an IV flush. So that just means, let's say we're bullish, right? Big gap up, right? If you chase longs right off the bat, it's going to be very difficult because the IV is still going to be elevated. So IV, anything over 100 is fairly elevated. And a lot of times if it goes in your original direction, sometimes you can have a position, solid entry, but price is rising and you're in calls and you don't make money because the IV is so elevated. What you need is an IV crush. That's why a lot of these opening plays, we're going to need some sort of dip. So if you're bullish, that can mean, right, the first two candles where it kind of crushes the IV, and then you end up having this nice pop for that continuation. It's basically like an opening drive play or a dip and rip, but it's specifically for earnings, which is called an IV flush. It's a little bit more advanced, so if you don't understand it, definitely do not trade earnings or be a little bit more cautious. A good rule of thumb is to just wait for that first 30 minutes to let that IV cool down before you do make any decisions. Because if you trade up right off the bat, there is going to be elevated IV, elevated volatility within the first kind of 5 to 10 minutes of market open. Okay, so for Palantir here, nice kind of push up towards the highs on Wednesday. Yesterday, kind of dropping right off the bat, but ultimately reclaimed later into the session. So for Palantir today, the levels I'm still going to have marked out here is your Monday's highs. That's going to be key for me. Really not too much of a clear direction. I'm leaning more towards the upside, but this is your Monday's highs. This is kind of where we opened up at for Palantir. If we can maintain above your Monday's highs, I'm still going to be bullish for continuation higher. If we can also mark out your previous day highs here as well, potential break above that for continuation. Just a lot of these ones, a decent amount of volatility on Wednesday and Thursday, but really no clear direction as you can see. This is basically what we have. You have your Wednesdays open, Thursday, and now we're kind of back inside of a range that we created from Wednesday and Thursday. So not too much I'm looking at here on Palantir coming to market open. As for Hood, this one's staying heavy here now as well. I had some news yesterday kind of dropping towards the downside for Hood. This is really the higher low that you like to see hold. So overall markets really holding up here. SPY's back at all-time highs, but you can see now Hood kind of lagging behind the overall markets. Really, this is kind of your inverse head and shoulders. This is exactly where you want to see the buyer step in, which is really off this 120. That's going to be the key level that we have marked out. So for Hood, pretty big drop yesterday. Now what we like to see is really the hold above your 122 for a push back up and towards 130 and potentially above. So this is the key level here for Hood. Quickly go over SoFi, not really too much after its news that we had last week. MU and TSM still holding up compared to the overall markets here. And then sorry, I just received a message. Now go over a couple more names. Let me go over gold and then I will call it a day here. So for gold, we kind of talked about this one yesterday. It's kind of breaking out with silver, but nice kind of base right above our key levels that we have marked out, which is our 4160. This is based off the daily time frame, but we kind of talked about this kind of consolidation period that we had. Sorry, higher lows were being maintained. This actually looks really good here on the daily time frame. You can see nice break, retest. You can see all these lower wicks being absorbed. And I can see we like to see this continue push back towards the upside. So for this one, now we're starting to trend higher. You can see this nice kind of break, retest, basing above our key levels. And now we're continuing back up and towards where? All-time highs. So I wouldn't be surprised if gold hits all-time highs today. That's going to be the major target that we do have coming into market open. Every single down close candle now you like to see be respected. So every single break you like to see hold for this continued push back up and towards our all-time highs. So that's what we have today. Let me quickly go over my game plan, then I'm going to call it a day here. But yeah, today, exact same game plan, kind of like yesterday. I expected more volatility yesterday just based off the pre-market action. Decent amount of pre-market action today here as well, or sorry, in the after hours. But coming into today here for the SPY and QQs, just because we've been ranging, I'm more inclined to be looking for the potential kind of bounce play. Sorry, it seemed like my stream cut out there for a second. But for SPY, those are my key levels. For Tesla, keep an eye out on this 448. NVIDIA and AMD, there's not too much to talk about, as I mentioned, just kind of in between these middle of the ranges. Just be a little bit more cautious here. As for everything else, a lot of it is inside of the range. So really not too much to talk about today. That's kind of been the theme the past couple of weeks. We had a decent amount of volatility after FOMC, but still inside of this range. So when we're inside the range, just be more cautious, lower size. It is a Friday today as well. So be more patient until we have any sort of higher time frame setup or any sort of clear momentum in the markets. We're just going to be a little bit more patient. So yeah, that's basically it today. As I mentioned, not really too much to talk about. If you do want to trade something that are in trends, we have gold, silver breaking out. We have a couple commodities that are moving up nicely. Besides that, the rest of the tech names and a lot of these other names kind of lagging behind. So just be a little bit more patient and wait for something to set up now here on the higher time frame. So that is going to be it for me today. I'm going to get ready for market open here. Hope you guys do have a great weekend. I do have a YouTube video, as I mentioned, coming out on Sunday, which is going to be really solid. And yeah, that's about it. And I will see you guys on Monday. All right. Take care, everyone. Have a good rest of the weekend. Peace.